Well, hi guys, we're live over here, but we're having a little bit of problems here. I don't know if I'm gonna be sideways for these guys. I hope not. Anyway, here we are, we're back, you guys. It's the end of summer, the end of August, and kiddos are heading back to school. Mine doesn't head back to school for another day, week. He heads back, not next week, but the week after, but I know some kids are already heading back. So we're going to start back with our school snack series. I'll be coming to you live with a brand new recipe each week. Things that you can pack into the school lunchbox so that you know that your kids are getting delicious yet super nutritious, gut healthy foods that are going to support your journey to improving their health or just maintaining their health, right? And making sure that things go as you want them to as they're growing. So I will be taking 2 weeks off in September because we're going on a little family trip. But after that, we'll be back with more great recipes. And I know we have a few new people joining us, maybe joining us in the private group. And if we're rotated over there, I'm sorry, I'm having technological challenges with my iPad today. It didn't want to let me go live. And if it bothers you to have to watch it rotated like that, I'm not sure if it is or not. You can always come over just to the regular Kids Health Revolution page, just the page on Facebook, and that way you won't have to watch it in a rotated way. See something? Sonia's watching. Okay, hi Sonia, your comments are coming in sideways. Sorry guys. So technological difficulties happening here in the Kids Health Revolution kitchen, but we're gonna steam right ahead and give you this great recipe today. This, of course, is gut healthy. We are making grain-free, dairy-free, processed sugar-free, and also nut and egg-free muffins, lemon blueberry muffins today. So if you've watched this for a while, I do have another recipe for lemon blueberry muffins up in the file section of our private group. But they have quite a lot of eggs and they have nuts in them as well. And because we're doing sort of an AIP protocol around here at the moment, we can't have those ingredients. So I'm always trying to reinvent my recipes in a way that we can still eat them and they still taste good, because sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge. So, hey Sonia, now I realize that now you're over here too. So tell me, Sonia, if you could in the comments, is the picture in the private group, is it rotated the wrong way around? If you can tell me that, that'd be great. And for the people who don't know about the private group, I have another camera growing up for my private group because this is the group where we have a community of parents that are so wonderful and supportive of each other and answering questions and asking questions and all kinds of good stuff. And if you go over there, that's where you can get the downloadable copy of all of the different recipes that I do for the school snack series. And I also post links to other recipes that I like as well. So it is sideways. Okay, thanks Sonia. So again, for anybody who's over on the private group, if you don't want to watch me sideways and you are watching right now, pop over to just the regular Kids Health Revolution Facebook page. You can see the right way around, and then you'll be able to grab your copy of the downloadable recipe later on in the files section. I'll have that up for you today. So diving into the recipe, you guys. I know it can be intimidating for some people that are just starting out with diet, and I know we do have a few new members to the group, so welcome. But let me tell you, there is so many wonderful things that you can eat, even when you're avoiding gluten and corn and soy and dairy and processed sugar, and it seems like the list goes on and on. But you know what? Food is still really accessible and really good. But you know, it does mean that we have to get back into the kitchen a little bit and start cooking up some real food. So that's what I'm here to do, to inspire you to be cooking up real foods that taste really good and still support your kids' health. Now, today's recipe is not introductory GAPS compliant. It is not full GAPS compliant. So I do have some followers here who are GAPsters, so their families follow the GAPS diet. If you have been on the full GAPS diet for some time, this is a recipe that you could definitely try, and I'll tell you why in a minute. If you're just into the GAPS diet, then you may want to go and look in the file section of the private group and grab my other lemon blueberry muffin recipe, because that one is going to be a bit more GAPS compliant with eggs and nut flours instead of what I'm using today, which is plantains. Now, I'm a big fan of using plantains when it comes to gluten-free baking. And especially when you're trying to avoid the nut flours. They just can't be beat because they have, and eggs, because you don't need the eggs for the binder as much when you're using plantains. They have this really great elasticity to them, which allows you to cook without using eggs, without using gluten, and without using the nuts, which is important for us right now. So plantains are fabulous in terms of their health benefits because they are high in what's called prebiotic fiber. If you've been watching this for a while, you've heard me say this before. Prebiotic fiber is important because when you're taking the probiotics or eating probiotic food, you're introducing the good bacteria into your body, and the prebiotic fiber gives those bacteria a reason to stick around because they have the food that they like to eat. So this is not digested in the small intestine. It travels all the way down into the large intestine and is food for our gut bugs. So it is great, especially after you've been on the full GAPS diet for some time. You've removed a lot of those prebiotic fibers. If you've cleaned out the gut a lot and you're not giving foods in that are going to help to feed the good bugs that you're replacing with it, sometimes you're fighting this uphill battle. So introducing these after you've been on the GAPS for a while and clean things up really well can be a great idea. So anything with diet, it's always about trial and error. When we're talking about nutrition and we're talking about using gut healing protocols for our kiddos, it is all about trial and error, you guys. It's about finding the foods that really work for you and your family. So make the recipe, have a few of the muffins, and if you notice that your child has a negative reaction to it, then you're probably going to stay away from it for a little while longer. If everything's fine, then it's probably a good sign that you're okay to continue doing things that are using plantains in recipes. So plantains in the store, if you're not familiar with them, you saw me holding that big, what looks like a banana, but it's quite a lot larger. This one's a bit smaller, but they're usually quite large. And you want them a little bit green, depending what you're making. So still a little bit green for this recipe with some yellow, so they have a little bit of sweetness to them. If you can't find them, you want to make these right away and they're all super green in the supermarket, then you can add a little extra sweetener, a little extra honey to the recipe to help sweeten it up. So big honkin' bananas basically is what a plantain is, but it has more starch to it, more fiber, prebiotic fibers, and a little less sugar. So into this recipe, I am putting 2 cups of the plantains, and I've got, hi, you win. It's lovely to see you too. Wonderful. Thanks for popping in. Sonia, if you don't find fresh plantains, absolutely, you can use plantain flour, Sonia. I don't know what to tell you in terms of the ratios for the plantain flour, unfortunately, because in Canada, or at least where I am in Canada, I can't get the plantain flour. I would love to be able to use it, but I can't get it. So I just use a fresh plantain. So you'd have to experiment a little bit with that. And if you do, I'd love to hear how it turns out for you and what ratios you use. That would be great. So 2 cups of the plantains. And what I like to do is put the plantains in. You do need to chop them a little bit so that they break down evenly in your blender. I'm using a Vitamix blender. You could use a food processor. That has always been my go-to, but my food processor broke down the other day. So now we're just using the blender for everything. And I need a lid. So I put this in first and just break down the chunks of, plantain a tiny bit. I'm trying to bring this into the camera shot here. I think we're good. Might be a little to the side. So that you don't have chunks of plantain left in your recipe. So I'll just scrape that back down in there, and as we get a bit more of our sort of liquidy stuff in there, it'll help break it down even more. But this is just how I like to do it. one stubborn little chunk in the middle there, of course. So now it's starting to break down and get kind of nice and creamy there, you can see. And I'm gonna add in the honey. Now with all of my recipes, I always make the addition of the sweetener optional. But I do find, and also variable, so you can certainly cut back on it. I have 3 tablespoons of raw organic honey here. You could use maple syrup. The thing that I like about honey is the fact that it is a single sugar, so it is digested higher up in the intestines. It is less likely to travel down and sit in the gut while it's being broken down and feed the bad guys down there, feed the bad bacteria that we don't want to be feeding. So because it's a single sugar, it gets absorbed more quickly and doesn't sit around in the gut feeding those bad bacteria. So that's the nice thing about using honey. So that goes in. And if you're just starting your kiddos out on a gluten-free, dairy-free, processed sugar-free style diet, you are going to want to probably make your recipes a little bit sweeter to begin with so that it's palatable to them because they're used to a sweeter taste. These are also going to be a slightly different texture maybe than they're used to because they're used to like a gluten style muffin. So if they're a little bit sweeter, I find they're a little bit more likely to accept them, and then you can start cutting back on it once you've been doing these diets for a while. So the honey is in there. Then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, organic lemon juice. And so that is approximately the juice of 1 lemon, depending on how juicy your lemons are. Okay, and that goes in, and of course we always add a little bit of salt, so I sometimes forget this and I really notice it in the recipe, so I'm going to put it in right now. A couple of little pinches of some good quality sea salt or Himalayan rock salt. And then we're going to put in about a teaspoon of good quality vanilla extract, so organic definitely. And I love this one. I'm not sure, I buy it in Mexico when I go there. It's organic and it's less alcohol in it than the other ones. But we're not using very much and it is cooking, so I don't worry about it very much. If you're a GAPster and you're doing the strict GAPS protocol, then you'll just skip the vanilla extract. If you happen to have the vanilla powder, you could certainly put that in, but goodness gracious, that stuff's expensive these days. So we haven't been buying that. I've just been using my good extract. And blend it up. I think I need to cook with stilettos because my Vitamix is so tall I can't reach into it when it's on the thing to stir it up. So I always have to take it off of the base so I can actually reach it, and then sometimes, like I just did, stand on my tippy toes so I can see into it. All right. Okay, and if you get the blender going too fast when you have a thick sort of dough like this, it will gather air and then you won't be able to blend anymore. But what I do like to do is blend it as high as it will let me go to get some air into the batter, because the air helps make them a little bit lighter. Okay. I'm not quite happy with that. I'm going to let it go just a little bit longer and let you see it there. It's still a little bit, it's not as fluffy as I would like it to be. So I am going to just blend it a bit more. Bear with me here. I know this isn't terribly exciting, but let's get it to the consistency we want it to be so I can show you. Sometimes when this happens, you can go in with your handy dandy little tool here and get it going again. This is only with the Vitamix. I wouldn't try this with a regular blender. Okay, so I don't know if you could hear that, but I was just gently turning up the power on my blender so that I didn't get that big air pocket in there, and using the tamper really helped to keep things down. And you can see that's just a little bit more airy. It's got a little bit more air and it's a bit smoother, so that's going to work out better for us for our muffins. Okay, and then we're going to go in and add in our chia seeds. So this is whole white chia seeds. You could absolutely use black. I like the look of white better, so that's what I'm using. And it's 1/3 cup. So I like to put that in and then blend it with that so that they can start to absorb liquid. And then we're going to add in a little bit more flours slowly, because depending on your plantains and how ripe they are and how big they were and all of those things, you may need a little more or a little less flour. So let's do this first. Okay, and you can hear that air pocket there again. Let's see if we can get it going again. Okay, and if you can get it cranked up a little bit, it'll start to break down the chia seeds as well a little bit. So there we are, it's getting a little bit thicker. And then I go in with the lemon zest. Now you can skip the lemon zest if you want to, but I find it really punches up the flavor. If you're following any kind of diet where you have to be careful of oxalates, then you would probably skip the lemon zest or at least cut back on it. This is 2 tablespoons of lemon zest. And so to get lemon zest, if you're not really familiar with some of the baking tools, you'll need a little grater like this that's quite fine. And you just run your lemon over it, and then you end up with this little bald looking lemon. So usually what I would do is make my lemon zest and then use this bald little lemon to squeeze out into the batter. So lemon zest goes in, and then I have here 1 tablespoon of tapioca flour, which is like cassava flour, except for it's just the starch. Some people find that they cannot tolerate cassava flour. It's a bit too fibrous, and a little bit of tapioca is okay. If you're on the GAPS diet, just skip the tapioca flour and add an extra tablespoon of coconut flour. So 1 tablespoon of tapioca flour and 2 tablespoons of coconut flour are in there. And that gives us just a little bit more binder to it as well, and increases the fiber because coconut flour is very high in fiber. Oh. Dropped my blender top, and since I'm not in a commercial kitchen, I can just pick it up off the floor. All right, let's throw that in there. Now I don't want to blend too high for this part because I don't want to completely blend my lemon zest into it so that it disappears. We still want to have some chunks of lemon zest. I have to say, this is one thing that I like better about the food processors. It's a little bit easier to make dough in if you're not making a really big batch of it. I need to get the smaller, more tapered container, and I think that might make a difference for me, I have heard. So let's scrape down the sides, give it a taste. Good. For us, it's the perfect amount of sweetener. You might want to again add or subtract sweetener depending on your family's tastes. Okay, there we go. So that is our batter made. And I am just going to put this into a bowl now in order to add our lovely blueberries. This is a great recipe to be making right now because you can get boxes of beautiful organic blueberries for a good price right now. So, you know, and we don't, even though we eat a lot of blueberries around here, we don't always get them finished. in time, so you don't want them to spoil. Making them into a muffin like this is great. You can double, triple this recipe and make some, throw them in the freezer, and they work great for just popping in that school lunch kit in the morning, and it'll be thawed by the time they have their snack or their lunch in the afternoon. So you get out as much as you can from there. Let's put that out of the way. And then I just fold in the blueberries, because I find if I push them through the blender, they just get blended up too much and doesn't have the texture and the nice blueberry pop that I want from it. So just fold those in. And that was 1 cup of blueberries, because I like a pretty good blueberry muffin. I like lots of blueberries in there. If you want less, add less. If you want more, add more. This is all up to you. Doesn't make a huge difference to the recipe or to the turnout or the consistency. And you can see we've got a pretty nice, smooth, silky batter there, and it's got a little, I don't know if you can tell by the look of it, but it's got a little elasticity to it because of those plantains, which is what makes it such a great food to use when we're trying to replace gluten in baking, because that's what we miss so much, is the elasticity from the gluten. Yeah, blueberries are so good, aren't they? Oh, just wonderful. We're so lucky when this time of year rolls around and we can get so many of them. Let me just grab a spoon here, and we're gonna just spoon a good big heaping tablespoonful into the pan here. So what I've got is just a muffin tin, and I've lined them with unbleached parchment paper, and in they go, just like so. Simple. You're gonna fill them all up. You'll make about 12 muffins that size, and then you're gonna pop them into the oven at 350 degrees and cook them for about 15 to 20 minutes. Now, it's gonna depend on your oven. I just got a new oven, and it's got the convection bake in it, so it takes a little bit less time. So I found 15 minutes worked great for my muffins with the convection. If you don't have the convection, you'll probably need to cook them for more like 25 to 30 minutes to get them to cook through. And they are lovely little muffins. Let me grab one out of the fridge, because I forgot to have one to show you. Where did I put them? There they are. One of the beautiful things about cooking this way is it's kind of hard to screw up. I know that sounds weird, but the other day when I was making a few of these, excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat. Little summer cough, cold thing happening. Anyway, I accidentally added a little too much flour to it. I didn't have any more plantains to add, so I just went with it. And they're okay. They're a little thicker than I wanted them to be, but they still taste good. They're still quite edible. So we, just went with it. But this is how you want your batter to be, with that little bit of light airiness to it. That's the ideal. You don't want it too thick. And that's why we add, slowly with the flour. So if you're finding your batter still too liquidy after that, then add another tablespoon of coconut flour and then mix it up and see how it is. Let it sit for a few minutes, because coconut flour absorbs liquid. And if you need more, then you add a little bit more, but always give it a little bit of time. So then we end up with these beautiful little blueberry muffins. They're smaller than your average muffin. So I would probably send in the lunch kit 2 of these. Okay, they taste great with some ghee slathered on them, upping the nutrition factor for the gut. You got lots of butyrate there, which is also great for the brain. So there you go, you guys. Pretty simple. Didn't take us that long. I don't know how long we've been on. I can't tell on my screen here, but probably 20 minutes to get this together. And once you get in the hang of it and you're not talking away like I am, 10 minutes and boom, you've got your muffins in the oven, and you have a beautiful little snack that you can send with your kids in their lunch kit packing them full of that good nutrition. So don't forget, if you like this video, please give it a like. If you're on the regular Facebook page, please give it a share. I would love for more families to find out what beautiful food's available without having to eat all of those ingredients that bring down our kids' health. And make sure to join the private community so that you can get your copy of the downloadable recipe, which I'll have up in a little while. Take care, you guys. We'll see you soon. Bye.